going to welcome you into the sacred space. The sacred space that you carry within you at all times. That peace that is within you, in that temple within your heart, that place where you meet God. That place that you can go to any day, not just on Sundays. It's any time, not just for an hour on Sunday. And I'm going to welcome you into the inner healing experience. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging the higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive. I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I am willing to accept as real for me in this coming week, visualizing the idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy this happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in this peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me, family member, friend, mentor, who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who is not physically present in the room this morning, and I turn to that image in my mind and say, I am grateful for the good in your life. I'm grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes to the world around me and turn joyfully to the person next to me and share my gratitude and confidence by saying, I am grateful for the good in your life. I am grateful for the good in your life. And we are grateful for the good in your life virtually.
That was excellent. And it was just last Sunday that we were talking about the music for this Sunday, and that song came up, and in a week they learned it. That's excellent. Thank you so much. Jeffrey, the amazing Jeffrey Oshman, off camera at the moment. You'll see him later in the morning, I'm sure. I'm Jesse Jennings. I welcome you here to Creative Life Spiritual Center for the second in a series of talks on extra senses that we have. That's senses, S-E-N-S-E-S, not C-E-N-S-U-S. But if you have not taken the C-E-N-S-U-S yet, by all means do so. If you have not filled out that material, by all means do so. If you've not registered to vote, this is a good time to do it. And I also want to mention, because the announcement portion is going to be full, when we come to that, Danielle is going to have a lot to tell us. This may not make the list because we haven't really talked about it, but if you possibly can, give blood. There are many places around the city where you can do this. Blood centers that you can go to, as well as drives held at other locations. Check it out online because they could really use your help. Okay, so we come to these extra senses, and the sense that I talked about last week, I called the mother of all senses, to lead off the parade, is the sense that there must be more than this. And this is a sense that I think every human has on some level, that there must be more going on than meets the eye, the sense of the unseen realm. Now, when I say the unseen realm, that sounds kind of mysterious, doesn't it? Just like that song that Fleetwood Mac. I'm listening to, they say down in Mexico, there's a man who can fly over mountains and hills. Now, that's pretty impressive. It would also be pretty alarming if you're standing there and this man goes sailing by over your head, and he's using a power that you didn't know people had. Anytime somebody uses a power that you don't know people have, it's astonishing. It can be alarming. It can be off-putting. But what they're really doing is pointing you back within yourself to the power that you have resident within you. And that's the thing about psychic powers and intuitive powers, which I'm going to get into today, is that these powers are normal and natural. There are people who will tell you that they are psychics, and others will say they are intuitives, and still others will say they are mystics, and some of them will have all three on their business card. But really, what they're saying is it's about the same thing as saying I'm a person who eats food, you know? You have these powers. Everybody has these powers. Some people develop them. That's the difference. Spiritual power is available to everybody across the board, and some people follow through with it. And when you follow through with the development of these powers, they open up to you new possibilities you didn't know you had, and other people look on in astonishment, but all you're doing is something really natural. Now, this is something our founder, Ernest Holmes, dwelt on quite a bit, that there is no supernatural. And when you read that at first, if you like the supernatural, if you're kind of drawn that way, it can seem kind of deflating. There's no supernatural. Oh man, you know, it's like there's no Easter bunny, or there's no Santa Claus or something. Well, that whole realm just went away. No, what he meant was, to the people who transact with that supernatural realm, it's perfectly natural. If there's somebody down in Mexico who flies, or did fly when they wrote the song, over mountains and hills, that person is thinking to themselves, this is perfectly natural that I'm doing this. And you know what? If they for a moment thought, whoa, this is crazy, you know what had happened? Not good. They'd sort of plummet, you know. To them, it's a perfectly natural feature, perfectly natural function of their own beingness that they can do this. Now, why are they flying over mountains and hills? Well, that's another good reason to inquire into this. The why of it. Why do we do these things? Well, they get there quicker, I suppose. Or perhaps they're doing it just to push their own limits, just to show that they can do it to themselves. A better question than why do they do it is, why do you do what you do? Why do I do what I do? And what are we seeking to get out of it? What are the senses that would be useful to us right now? Higher senses than we have. Well, as I mentioned last week, the first one that's most useful is the recognition that we're feeling like there must be more than this. Because when you say that to yourself and you admit that to yourself, the more than this begins to show up. It's already been there, but now it's tangible. Now you perceive it. Now suddenly it's useful. And it's like another limb, you know? It's like another physical sense and way of dealing with the world. Now suddenly the unseen becomes the seen. It comes into view. And you realize you can use this thing for your own spiritual development and for the betterment of the whole world, which is why we're engaged in spiritual development at all. It's not just a personal, private thing to kind of feather our own nest. It's for the betterment of all life, everywhere, to know who we are. So the sense that there's more to life than meets the eye, there's more going on than this, leads us in the direction, well, what could that be? And it's the sense that not only is there an unseen realm, but that realm is the source of this one. Or what one writer has called, this is a little technical, a little dry, but you might find it helpful, the primacy of non-physical reality. The primacy of not just that there is a non-physical reality, but that it's the prime mover of everything that occurs in the physical. It is the first cause behind all subsequent cause, and of course behind all effect. The first cause, back of all subsequent cause, is invisible and intangible. And it's the realm of the psychic and the intuitive and the mystical. And what's kind of funny is that people sometimes will say, well, now all of that stuff, you know, that's occult. That's sort of borderline crazy talk. And the people who say that will file into a church of some kind and they'll worship a god of their understanding. And if they don't do that, they'll say, well, I love my family and my family loves me. And I know that, well, that's just as subjective, isn't it, as the idea that there's something psychic or otherwise going on behind the scenes, which leads us into a conversation about the subjective. I'd like you to consider that there's a subjective and objective reality happening simultaneously. The subjective is the unseen, it's the realm of power and creation, but it would not be fulfilled if in its creation it didn't actually produce something. So it's busy producing things after their own kind. Every idea, especially an idea that's deeply believed in, repeatedly, begins to manifest as the form that corresponds with it for the purpose of fulfilling the idea and closing the circle, completing the circle. So somebody had an idea, we've used this example before, but somebody had an idea a long time ago. They strummed a string. It's not easy to say. They strummed a string and it made a sound. And they thought, whoa, that's different. And the sound made them feel something, you see? And so they kept strumming it and it kept making the same sound. Then they realized if they shortened or lengthened it, tightened or loosened it, it'd make a slightly different sound. Then they thought, let's put some more strings together. And they found some of these, probably vines, you know. They found some more vines and they strung them together and they made instruments that now, and they could tune the strings, and on it went. I can't give you the whole pedigree of how stringed instruments came to be in this morning, but you get the picture, right? And eventually they produced something that looked like a harp. We've had a harpist on this stage here recently, and will soon again. Well, they produced a harp, and they became fluent on the harp. And then somebody had the idea, let's lay the thing sideways and put it in a sound box, and they came up with a piano, you see. And all of this was out of one idea that then built on itself, that would have been sadly unfulfilled if the world didn't have harps and pianos and other stringed instruments in it, see? So every idea is on its way into creation, unless it gets sidetracked, unless it gets disbelieved in, and then it kind of withers away. and something else steps up and begins to move forward. And if you could see all of this stuff laid out in front of you, you'd see things peeling off, and it would look like freeways and stuff, you know, things on the way there and then taking kind of the off ramp, because now never mind about that, but hey, let's do this over here. And so the things that people deeply need or want are things that feed our souls, get believed in, and they move forward. We're filming this today. We're on Facebook and YouTube, and all of this stuff once, in recent, for somebody my age, in recent memory, none of this stuff existed. None of this. I remember when I got a fax machine. I remember when I got a 256K little box where I could move paragraphs of type to somebody who writes. There is nothing better. And I said that, and before that I'd said when I got a correcting typewriter, I'd said, it doesn't get any better than this. This is, what is the Holmes expression? This is the summum bonum. The highest, this Latin, the highest good. The highest good. It simply can't get any better than this. And then. Why? Because what people love to do, want to do, need to do, is communicate. Information. For the purpose of learning and the stimulation of feelings. This is why we do so much of what we do, is to learn and then implement that learning and stimulate feelings, feel differently about ourselves, impress ourselves with different bodies of work, information, extend our own capabilities, and so on. You know, like it used to be the case, if you wanted to, I don't know, learn a language, you had to go find a school. You had to go find a teacher. That would be real hard right now in the pandemic, wouldn't it? Sit in a classroom of people learning a language. If you wanted to learn a language that was a little obscure, it might not be offered in your town. You might have to go miles and miles to it. Now you got an app on your phone. You got competing apps on your phone. You know, they'll talk to you in this language. They'll do all kinds of. You want to learn how to play a musical instrument. You want to learn how to, I don't know, fix things around the house. It's all there. All of this information is there. It's all around us everywhere. Why? Because it wants to close the circle. The information wants to come forward, close the circle, and be implemented in form. There was once a time in our world when a very tiny number of people had most of the knowledge. Most of the, I guess you'd say, ancestral memory, most of the awareness of the culture of the time, one tiny little group of people, and everybody else was pretty much about survival. Okay, that number is increasing exponentially so that people everywhere can learn new and different things, become more. Now, what does this have to do with psychic ability? Some of you are waiting to hear about that because you want to fly over mountains and hills down in Mexico, scare the tourists. Well, psychic awareness is this. It's another level of information. If I tell you something, it's verbal. If I act it out in a certain way, it's kinetic. If I put together a device that contains a message, as for instance this circle and V, that's symbolic. Some of you will ask, watching perhaps for the first time, what does this thing mean? I don't have time to tell you right now, but it's pretty simple. It's at the back of the Science of Mind textbook, and I can also send you information on it, so you let me know. Basically, it's everything I'm just talking about. It's the descent of spirit into form. It's how the circle is closed and what happens within the circle when something is created. Well, that's a symbolic transfer of information. And these are just three basic primary levels that we're all aware of, but there's also a psychic level. And the psychic level is the level of information transference that's non-physical and subjective. It's also about effect. It's less about cause and more about effect. Psychic information is about people, places, and things. It's hunches that you get of what might happen next. It's hunches of where you left the car keys. It's that kind of thing. And not to trivialize it, but it is about people, places, and things. Cultivate it. And you have another power at your disposal. You have another alarm clock in your head. Have you ever had an important appointment and you woke up before the alarm, like right before the alarm was due to go off? Okay? Or you do this every morning. You have to be to work at a certain time, and so you just kind of automatically wake up every day. What is that? Well, you've set something within yourself that is non-tangible and unprovable, but it works. You can program yourself to drive down the right streets at the right time. You can program yourself to show up in places when they're less busy, which is a good idea these days. You can program yourself to give you information to expedite your journey through life. And all of this is happening psychically. And somebody watching you will say, that's coincidence. And you can't prove it's not. But you know. I simply set some parameters in my search fields, in my soul. And this is how it's working out. And so people that we see who appear to be lucky are people who have wittingly or unwittingly sort of programmed their subjectivity to avoid certain potholes and pitfalls that the rest of us experience. You can do this too. I can do this too. Are you accident prone? Are you clumsy? Are you, what's the word we used to use? Klutzy. Are you klutzy? Okay, what would be the positive opposite of that? You can program yourself to be that way. You might need a word for it, but you certainly need a picture for it. You need an interior embodiment of it, where everything works out smoothly, where you're not having to be interrupted in your journey to fix this or clean that up or apologize for something else. This is using the psychic realm in a very conscious way. And I've been reading in a book, a classic in New Thought, called The Law of Psychic Phenomena by Thompson J. Hudson, who was someone else that Ernest Holmes read back in the day. He wrote in the early years of the 20th century. And in there he's talking about the power of the subjective mind. He says, it should be remembered always that the power of the subjective entity is the most potential force in nature, and when intelligently directed, the most beneficent. The most potential force. By potential, he means potent, strong. The most potential force in nature, not among them, not third most, but the most potential force in nature. And when intelligently directed, the most beneficent. When you're intelligently directing your subconscious mind, aka the psychic field, also the field of memory, also the field of emotion, all of this happens at in the same quality of vibration, the same reservoir of energy. When you're intelligently working with that, it makes your life easier. It again expedites your goals moving forward because it arranges effects in a useful way. Which brings us to intuition. Intuition is the circle in the circle in B. Intuition is the thing that ties all of this together. The symbolic, the verbal, the kinetic, the psychic, and so forth. All of the other, and each, you can split the difference in each of these layers of information. The intuitive is the thing that rings it all together. And what the intuitive is going back to last week when I said there's this, you have a sense that there's something more than meets the eye. It's the recognition of that more in the moment, when the all comes walking into your life. And it's not about people, places, and things. It's not about where you left the car keys or what time to get up or what street to drive down or who's on the phone if you don't have caller ID, which everybody has now, so I can't use that example anymore. But anyway, although some of them are like name unknown or potential spam, but it's not about all of that. But it's also not about all of that. Does that make sense? It embraces all of this. And it says, one. O-N-E, one. All one. The universe is one whole system. The whole thing is one. And right at the moment when you or I are thrown for a loss, for a loop, by conditions, it says one. There's one. What are we going to do now? There's one. Uh-oh, what I thought was going to happen isn't happening. There's one. I'm facing my own mortality. I'm in hyper sensitivity, hyper alert due to the pandemic. And where we'll be a year from now. One. It says one. Okay. Poetically put, scripturally put, come unto me, all ye who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. One. You are my beloved child in whom I am well pleased. One. That's what it says. That's what the intuition says is one. And sometimes we want to extract from it the psychic. We kind of grab it up, we say, great, well, all of this one. Now where are my car keys? She said, one. Not my job. You want your psychic realm for that. It'll be back in a minute. Right now, just know it's all one. Meaning, that's what it gives you. Meaning, clarity, that's what it gives you. Context is what it gives you. You know the expression that gets bandied about that you're not a human doing, you are a human being. You've heard this. It's been in currency for a couple of years. Okay, this is what it tells you. This is who you are. This is your nature. This is your divine nature. Sometimes people in New Thought, I'm going to talk more about this next week, but sometimes people in New Thought metaphysics think, I'm getting real mixed messages here. I'm being told on the one hand that God loves me and I'm enough just the way I am. And on the other hand, I'm being told I ought to be more. You're not doing enough. You could be famous, you could be rich, you could be beloved by millions. You're not doing enough. That's real mixed messages. Well, I'm more along the lines of just one. You are enough. And if there's more for you to do, you'll know what it is. You don't need me to yell at you about it. You'll know what it is, and you'll do it. And you'll do it, and you'll put in the work, and you'll put in the time, and you'll put in the sacrifice. And if you want to learn how to play the musical instrument, all of the YouTube videos in the world, as great as they are, won't relieve you of the responsibility to sit at the instrument. All of the language apps in the world won't relieve you of the responsibility to work on your pronunciation and read the stuff that at first looks impenetrable. The poor Greeks, they always get brought into it. It looks like Greek to me, come on. The Greek language is a beautiful language. It's in a different alphabet. You have to learn the alphabet. Things can guide you there. Things can walk you up to that threshold, but what you're basically going to have to do is put in the time. You're also going to have to be wrong a lot. Wrong. Well, a lot of times what people do learning languages and musical instruments, by the way, is they start out on their own and then they take lessons or something and they realize, you've been doing it all wrong. You don't hold it that way, you hold it this way, and you've been saying this wrong, but and that's an expression I heard from a teacher about practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. You see, practice embeds in you the way that you're doing it, even if the way you're doing it is not. Well, then they'll tell you this is the wrong way to do it and you should do it some other way, but you might be stubborn and say, no, I'm going to keep doing it the way that I was. And then if you get good enough at it, you'll become what? A trailblazer. You'll become a pioneer in this. And you'll invent a whole new way of playing that instrument or enunciating that language or what have you, you see. Well, you are enough the way you are. And what intuition reminds you is that just, it's all one. It's all one. And if it hasn't all made sense yet, it's on the road to making sense. It's on the way to making sense. It's never over, but it does change. Life does change. Life goes through chapters. Life goes through hills and valleys. Yet it comes to a place where you realize that you're adding on to something here. It's not just, as I said last week, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or maybe 2 or even 3 steps back. Instead, things are building on themselves, and you're growing, and you're gaining in recognition of yourself. And this, in conclusion, is what this whole place stands for, and I dedicated my life to teaching and stuff, is the idea that there is a power and a presence. I'm going to treat about it, which is what we call affirmative prayer here in a moment. But there's a power and a presence that is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's in everyone. It's in everything. And I have absolutely no attachment to what anyone does with that, within the bounds of good taste. But everyone has a right to know it. Has nothing to do with your religion, and everything to do with it in a sense, the practice of your religion. Whatever you believe about God, whatever you believe about the universe, is your business. And this teaching was first offered to people across the board, regardless of their religious persuasion, and it still is. Some of them decided they wanted to have an institution, so here we are. But it's really not about an announcement of outer faith, but a recognition of inner gifts and an application of these gifts. So practice your psychic stuff. See what occurs to you that had no reason to occur to you. See what information that you seek just kind of magically shows up. And it is magic, but again, people who work in magic, to them it's ordinary. So it's ordinary magic, it's everyday magic. It's what? Practical magic. See? Practice it. Try this. Try this, try this, try this. The science of spiritual psychology. And there's a fellow named Eliphas Levi who you might read as well, and many other authors that I can recommend to you. So if you want to know more about that, you can contact me. All right, we're going to speak the word now. What this word is doing is impressing upon the subjective level of mind a certain reality. And this subjective is receptive, it operates on the word, takes it, runs with it, and it seeks to and achieves closing the circle by bringing back into experience people, places, and things, situations, circumstances, and conditions that correspond to the word implanted in the subjective. Therefore, I speak this word about every person hearing these words, every person watching these videos, listening to the audio tracks, every person hearing about this from a friend a week from now. And I speak it as well about all the people those people know, and the people those people know, and pretty much we're up to everybody. I speak this word about oneness, clarity, meaning, context, the context of oneness and wholeness. Practically speaking, if we encounter somebody who's having a bad day and they're sharp of tongue with us, we realize this is what they're needing to do out of their fear, out of their discomfort. What tools do I use? And oneness is once again proclaimed. There is no other. There are no them. There's just life expressing. at various degrees of understanding of itself. And so you and I choose the high road of forgiveness, of gratitude, of unconditional blessing that's poured out across the world and wherever sentient beings may be. All one. Each one. Each one. You and I come alive with powers unforeseen, unpredicted, but at the ready to do that which needs to be done by us at this time in this world for the furtherance of our own goals, our own life's purpose, our own bliss. For this knowing and its manifestation in form, I am so deeply grateful. And I release this word now into that one life I think of as first cause, from which all other causes and effects must naturally stream. With that, I just let it be. And so it is.
So I invite you now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
Here to give us our closing today is a face you've not seen on camera, lo these many months. Would you please welcome the Reverend Marcia Lehman.
Thank you. And for closing today, I'd like to say this, that when I'm in creative life, I'm usually at home, and I'm with all the people who say hello and howdy on the left side of your screen. So I'm missing you right now, and yet right now I know that we're all together in spirit and in the psychic realm and in the realm of one. And I know that as we move away from our screens or from this place, that there is that goes with us, that love that propels us forward, that love that taps us on the shoulder and reminds us that there is that in the unseen that is always bringing good, always available for that we want, and that we need, and that we love. And so as we go forth this week, we remember that we are part of something that is greater than we could ever imagine. And with that, we know that there is around us, in us, and through us, this power and presence, ever guiding us, giving us wisdom that is available and with us and through us. I feel like there are more words to say because this place is so special and so much a part of who we are. So anyway, I release this now, knowing that there is that always says yes as we say yes to it, and so it is.
And now sing with us the peace song.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose
I
it.
trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
And I love it.
And I love it.
And so it is.
And so it is.